Hi, everyone. Welcome to today's webinar on Achieve Operational Efficiency in Manufacturing through Governed Asset Data. A lot of manufacturing organizations today operate in an environment where expectations around efficiency, uptime, and responsiveness have never been higher. At the same time, a lot of companies have made significant investments in systems and digital capabilities over the past decade. Yet, there's a noticeable gap between what these systems are expected to deliver and what teams experience on the ground. The industry estimates suggest that unplanned downtime can cost manufacturers anywhere from tens of thousands to hundreds of thousands of dollars per hour. What is less visible is how much of that impact is influenced by the way of information is managed across and used across the organization. It's not always an obvious problem. It doesn't show up as a system failure or a technology limitation. Instead, it shows up in more subtle ways: delays, workarounds, inconsistencies, and other things that are often accepted as part of the normal operations. So this is why today's conversation is very relevant. This session is not about introducing new tools or technologies, but taking a closer look at understanding the challenge that cuts across maintenance, supply chain, operations, and what it takes to address in a very structured way. To help us with this, we have two complementary perspectives. Dr. Imad Syed, CEO of the PiLog Group, and my colleague from the Infotech Research Group, Shreyas Shukla, who's the Principal Research Director. Together, let's unpack this topic from both a strategic and practical standpoint. Dr. Syed, why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself?
I'm Dr. Imad Syed, CEO of PiLog. I've been with PiLog for 24 years and extensively worked in the asset industry. And most of my conversations are with the business leaders or the C-level suite, where we talk about asset data challenges or what are the value leaks in the industry. And I'm happy to be here, and along with me, Mr. Shreyas Shukla, if you can kindly, give your perspective of why we are here, and then, we'll take it forward.
Absolutely. Thank you, Dr. Imad, and thank you for the introduction, Shashi. Hello, everyone. Like Shashi mentioned, I'm a Principal Research Director with Infotech. I belong to the manufacturing advisory practice. And in my role, I work closely with manufacturing technology leaders, CIOs, CTOs, sometimes business leaders, operations leaders as well, all the way from discrete to process manufacturers and other asset-intensive sectors like retail, utilities, oil and gas. And a large part of that work involves understanding where these organizations are investing in. Be it technology, what kind of outcomes they expect, and where they are having challenges sort of realizing these outcomes. And one of the consistent patterns that comes up in my conversations, I speak with over 300 different manufacturers annually. One of the consistent patterns we see is that organizations are constrained by how they're dealing with their data, how it's structured, how it's connected, integrated, and how it's governed across the organization and across the several different systems they use. So that's going to be my focus in today's session. Like, that's the perspective that I want to bring to today's webinar. Is to talk about what I'm seeing in my conversations with manufacturers, with leaders from other asset-heavy industries, the structural reasons behind some of the challenges that they are facing, and how, as an organization, you can approach this in a more systematic way. And I think the real value here, obviously, is to combine this perspective with Dr. Imad's perspective on how he's seeing these issues actually show up and get solved in practice with these several different clients he works with. So with that, I'll toss it back to Dr. Imad and Shashi to take us through the rest of the webinar.
Yeah, fantastic. I'm really excited that we have such experts. I've heard both of them speak at a lot of conferences. Dr. Imad speaks globally at several conferences. But let's walk through quickly how the discussion is structured today. There are five key themes that build on each other and reflect what we are consistently hearing, not only from manufacturers, but also asset heavy industries. The point of operational failure, where things actually break down in day to day operations. This is where this will help ground the conversation in the real world impact. We'll move into asset and maintenance data fragmentation. I'm sure everybody has heard this before in the audience. And by the way, audience, if you have any questions for the panelists, please put it in the comments box, and we'll make sure that we can have the panelists answer these questions. After the asset and data maintenance fragmentation, the third theme is where the disconnect happens. Less about individual systems, but more about how different functions, maintenance, supply chain, and operations end up working with different versions of the same information. I think Dr. Imad has spoken about it a lot, both data governance and master data management. The conversation will also shift to what good actually looks like. What does a well-structured governed data environment look in practice? And then we'll touch on AI, predictive maintenance, and the root cause to structure to outcome, and tie it back to what organizations can realistically do. With that, I think there are a few statistics that I can quickly walk you through. We are looking at, by 2030, we are looking at hundreds of billions of dollars being invested globally in digital initiatives such as AI, IoT, cloud, ERP, and a wide range of transformation programs. Organizations are not holding back on technology investment, but when you look at the reality, the outcomes don't fully align with the level of investment. Only relatively small percentage of companies are able to scale beyond the pilot program. A large number of initiatives get stuck in what is often called pilot purgatory, where they show promise but never translate to sustained operational impact. So let's start our discussion with this. Dr. Imad, when you look at such outcomes, what trends or patterns are you seeing emerging?
Yeah, thank you very much. For this question, because I also want to clarify something. Why are we having this webinar is to bring in different perspectives is one. The second thing is AI, data, these are at the forefront now. I mean, everybody is investing in AI and data. And Shashi, what you just now shown on the screen is the 250 billion projected digital spend, and that's by 2030, and it's massive. And I believe this is probably at least 5 to 6 folds compared to what was it in 2025 last year. And we do not want anybody to take the initiatives of data as well as AI lightly, and especially into the master data of asset, master data of spare parts, and master data that is running the operations and maintenance. That's the reason we would like to really safeguard, help them, actually give them some tips. What is it that is good for you? So those five themes that you showed just now, and I'm sure those are the trends, those are the pain points currently. And if anybody feels that there are other pain points or other themes that we must answer, you have this live session, you can comment and we'll pick it up and we will respond. Just also I want to pass on a comment to all those who are joining. There are quite a lot of people that have joined. Hello everybody. I'm sure that this session would bring in some insights into what is going around, and you would learn and pass it also on to your colleagues, as well as if you are PiLog, pass it on to the customers. If you are an analyst, you would also understand our perspective, why it is different or why it is aligning with the industrial trends. So on this note, Mr. Shreyas, do you think that the spend that is expected, 250 billion, is it over ambitious, or do you think that is closer to the reality?
I don't think it's over ambitious at all. I think, in fact, this number might actually be a little more conservative
Okay.
because the one thing we've been seeing is any work with emerging technology, and it's not just AI. If you're talking about any fit for purpose application that you're going to implement, also taking into account the large amount of ERP modernization initiatives that folks in the manufacturing space, in the asset heavy space are doing. You take all of this into account, 60 to 70% of the effort is data work,
Mm.
right? Now, what's happening amongst first movers, especially in areas like AI, because they've been experimenting with AI initiatives for 3 years now. They've been experimenting very, very
Yeah.
seriously.
Yeah.
And now they are starting to see challenges. They're starting to learn from those challenges, and those challenges are becoming more commonly available to everyone else who has not yet moved on these initiatives. So they are starting to understand these things as well. And they're starting to realize that you cannot build these new capabilities, whether it's AI or anything else, any kind of analytics, for example, or any kind of rapid decision engine. You cannot build it on weak data foundations.
Yeah.
So everyone is now realizing that we shouldn't be only talking about what can we do with things like AI. We should be talking about how ready are we to do these things.
Mm.
And data is one of the most crucial aspects of addressing that readiness factor. And
Mm.
I see that happening quite a bit. So the acceleration here will happen. The projected digital spend is going to be much, much higher. We're going to see an exponential curve there. But everyone right now is just trying to figure out if they have the right level of readiness, they have the right level of data management and governance in place, those foundations in place to be able to invest in these things.
Yeah, I just would like to compliment by what you said, is that there's also a trend that, guys, let's quickly go on to a AI platform, build something, and then, yeah, we are able to build it in a day or two. And, that initiative will never go forward because of a couple of reasons. Number one is that building MVPs or POCs or POVs out of these AI platforms is easy, but those are not enterprise grade software solutions. Those are not enterprise level solutions. Those have not been fully tested thoroughly for deployment onto large scale enterprises, and that's why nobody would like to take that solution and quickly deploy it. Probably that's also accounting towards not getting these pilot phases converted into a production, because a lot of initiatives. That's one. The second thing, what I'm seeing also, that every organization says that don't worry, we'll build the app very quickly, but when they go to their cybersecurity, their IT department, they say that, guys, we cannot bring in this code into our landscape because of certain restrictions, certain vulnerabilities, certain checks and balances that they have to do, and also that's also contributing. So our objective here is that don't start on a project without having the bigger roadmap for that. Otherwise that initiative is not going to succeed. It's not going to flourish forward. And I also want to mention something. We have seen several people started saying that, guys, let us just do a POC or a POV or a pilot quickly, and then they take a small portion of the data. It's not that complex data. There's no variety in it. There is no volume in it. And then they build it and they feel that, okay, we are getting the results. But the moment it hits the production data or near production data, that model fails. So I think those are also the things that contribute heavy towards this unsuccessfulness of these initiatives, right?
Yep, that's
Absolutely.
true. I think that takes us right into our next discussion. Multiple studies have shown that a significant majority of data and analytics initiatives fail to deliver sustained value. At Infotech, our own research has consistently indicated that a large proportion of these initiatives do not make it to production, just like you said, Dr. Syed, and they also fail to scale. At the same time, manufacturers continue to invest heavily in data systems and digital capabilities. So the question is not whether organizations have data, they clearly do. And Shreyas, how does this gap show up in real client environments, and what does it look like on the ground when data exists but decisions still fail?
Yeah, thank you for that question, Shashi. And I will extend what Dr. Imad was talking about, because he mentioned something very important here. Is the concept of context, right? And we were trying to see a lot of problem solving happen, especially when it comes to AI use cases and the data that powers those AI use cases, by using guardrails in place. So, hey, you're trying to provide all of the proper context and guidelines through prompting, and you're trying to make sure that the AI system understands exactly what needs to happen on top of this baseline data, so you get some quality insights in return. Then we started seeing retrieval augmented generation, right? So you pair all of the right kind of prompting with the right kind of documentation, and you hope that the right analysis happens. And now that has evolved from just using the right documents to contextualization, and you're starting to see solutions that help you do that. And that's extremely important, because that will accelerate whatever analysis AI does on top of whatever data you supply it. And this goes back to the point that Shashi was making, is we don't really see, in the typical sense, a lack of data. There's a lot of data out there.
Mm.
There's a lot of data at every level in the organization. If you've got older machinery, for example, 40 years old, 50 years old, you have the ability to bring all of these machines online with third-party sensors, right? You can retrofit them with these sensors, and voila, right? You get all of the condition monitoring you want available from what we used to call them stranded machines. These are now completely online. So you have all this data. The question is, when people are looking at this data, are these just numbers that show up on an and-on board or show up on a dashboard somewhere? Or are these numbers showing up with context, whether it's good or bad, whether it's going beyond statistical boundaries, whether it's paired to the historical condition information of that machine? So if it's deviating from boundary conditions, and the machine has been recently maintained, you need that context. Otherwise, it just shows up in isolation, and it shows up as one problem in a sea of problems that you see on a day-to-day basis. So the bottom line to remember here is, data is there. We need context. Context is going to sit on top of data, and that is what's going to give you value when you take a look at all of this information from your shop floor, from your machines. Now there are two other aspects, and these are secondary, but they show up, I'd say, in the top three list of problems here. Obviously, one that I spoke about was lack of context, and the second one is the consistency gap. So if you've got people in your organization, when they're talking about data, when they're talking about, now if we move on to the maintenance or the MRO or the asset context, if they're talking about components,
Mm.
usually they'll be talking about it in a completely different sense, right? There'll be a different way of referring to that component. There'll be a different way of referring to that asset. Sometimes you don't have hierarchical information that maps all of this stuff together.
Right.
So the problem then becomes, is your teams automatically think that whenever they have to communicate to somebody, or they have to get this kind of feedback from a different team, they need to put aside mental bandwidth to do that translation. Hey, when they're talking about asset code this, in our world, that actually means that. So I have to make sure that procurement understands exactly what I need so they can tell me if it's already sitting in inventory
Yeah.
or something that's not there and I have to order it, right? Otherwise, you're going to end up with duplicated parts, you'll end up with aging components, you'll end up with shrinkage. And we want to avoid that from happening. But more importantly, you want to make sure that your different teams trust the data, they talk to each other using the same language. So closing that consistency gap, that communication gap between teams is also important. And how that's going to happen, some of this problem is going to be solved through ownership and governance. Some of this problem is going to be solved through systems, right? It's not just one medicine here. You're going to
Hmm.
have to use a mix of both. And ownership and governance is important, and it's often overseen by organizations because they think, hey, once we have the tools and systems in place, everyone will reorganize and start magically governing all of this properly. And that never happens, right? So we want to
That's
make
true.
sure there is proper accountability, at least if not single point of accountability, there is some sort of traceability and accountability within the team. And someone owns the truth of the data. Otherwise, we won't be able to figure out why this is decaying, why context is decaying across the organization, and why you are repeating mistakes when it comes to procuring the components required, supplying the components required.
Great. I think, Dr. Syed, I'm sure you'll have a lot to say about this because you talk to your own customers. But I want to just think about a previous conversation that we had. You explained it very simply so that a non-data person like me could also understand, is that if you showed me a piece of equipment, there are 60 ways in which I would describe it. But you said there are tools that are available that can actually precisely say what exactly it is. So tell us a little bit about what is the situation on the ground where data exists, but still companies are not able to use it.
Yeah. See, what I liked from Shreya's answer is that context. Now, when we are looking at asset, probably there is some data that exists that is coming out of the OEM manuals. There is some data that is coming out of the procurement. There is some data that is coming out of the commissioning of it. But who is it that is collecting all this data and making sense out of it? So data exists and it exists in different formats. But as PiLog, what we have seen all the time is that when the customer said, "Oh, guys, we have this piece of asset, but we don't know, where the data is." The data is actually lying with them. If you have the model number of that asset, then you would be able to get to the right OEM manual of it and cross-section drawing of it, and then you can identify spare parts of that. You can identify the maintenance strategies around that. You will be able to even identify the failure modes of it. You can go on and on and on. You can build it, but they don't know, what is the methodology to build that, because most of the times what is happening is during the handover process, I actually, call that as not a handover, it's a throwover. OEMs are throwing the data and leaving it. It's not handover. Obviously, there is a standard for that. CFOS is a standard. 15926 is a standard where you really hand over certain documents as part of it. If you do proper handover, then you are in full control of it. Though you do not have the data in system of record, but you definitely have certain base on which you can build that context out of it. And context is very, very important. That's why when we look at it, all our AI models are trained on context and content. Because if you don't bring in that context, then you won't be able to do it. What is the context? Just for simplicity, is that a centrifugal pump that is operating on the ground is completely different than a centrifugal pump that is operating underground, because that's the context. And the spare parts, runtime of those spare parts is completely different. The conditions are different, operating methods are different, because one really need to pull out of it and operate it. Some of the tools are required, specialized tools are required. So that context is something that we need to carry forward whenever we are bringing the data. Otherwise, you won't be able to connect the dots. And most of the times, customers are facing that, guys, we don't have the data. Yes, data is still there, but it is not making sense because the semantics are not connected, the context is not connected, the taxonomies are not well defined, like what Shreyas was mentioning. A valve can be, a valve is a valve. There are 54 different types of valves that are available. Everybody call it as a valve, but nobody says that, okay, it's a globe valve or a butterfly valve or a needle valve, where it is used, how it is used, what's the purpose of it. So until and unless you bring that context into it and that semantic layer into it, you won't be able to make sense of it. And this is what is the problem. And we always look at it saying that, guys, don't worry. I want to just give you one example and then maybe we move on. Is that one of the customer about 3 years ago said that, guys, we have the documents from probably 15 years old documents, but we don't have the data. We said, okay, as long as you have documents, we will ensure that you get to the right system of record. And after 18 months, we took exactly the same documents and just we did research, we did a lot of other AI tools on top of it. Now they have complete master data record for that particular asset and the usage of it. What is happening now is that O&M operations and maintenance contractors, they get a little bit irritated with that because we are telling them what to do. Earlier, they were telling what they did, what should have been done. So that's the difference. And their maintenance cost went down. And because, that's what a true data can really bring, across different departments. And I'm just giving an example of only the maintenance department. Yes, it could be different from procurement. It could be different for financial. It could be different for warehouse and, inventory management. But that's the disconnect. And if we can bring in that connect and contextualize it, absolutely everybody would have fantastic data that can be made sense.
Great, and this segues very well into the next topic about maintenance operations. It also proves that what you've been saying about data inconsistencies actually costs a lot of money, because these are not edge cases; they're very common. The industry research has shown that significant portion of maintenance time is not spent on the repair, but like you said, Dr. Syed, identifying parts, verifying specifications, and locating the right information. So it's not just downtime, but it's a delay even before the action can begin. So Shreyas, tell us about what typically causes these situations: duplicate material records, asset definitions, missing specifications, or something else.
Yeah, the interesting thing with this is, one, there are reasons why these problems occur, right? But the more important bit is that we've started calling them systemic issues, meaning they are now built into your workflows. And a little bit of inefficiency there, some delay here, that's become so normalized now that that's the kind of knowledge transfer that's happening. Like Dr. Imad was talking about this. We actually refer to this as the hot potato transfer, which is just completely toss it over. Now it's your problem, and you deal with it, right? But we see these little inefficiencies being inherited by new people who come to the team when this data starts proliferating across the organization to other departments. They also inherit these problems. And when I say these problems, what I'm talking about is a few of these, right? So one, for example, is system fragmentation. Now, there's a variety of different ways that we refer to this. The bottom line is this: there are multiple different systems at your organizations today that need to rely on the same base of data, right? So for our topic, for example, we are talking about asset data, we're talking about material data, we're talking about maintenance data, and then we're talking about work orders, right? And parts of this data comes from different systems, and it's stitched together as part of a work order today. And right now, this looks like a treasure hunt in most organizations. Everybody is just going and hunting this data. In fact, an interesting statistic I remember, and this was from a while ago, is that most maintenance teams are spending 65 to 75% of their time actually trying to do administrative work and to figure out what is it they need to do, and
Wow.
only 25% of their time doing actual maintenance activities, repair activities, component replacement activities. So this is a real efficiency challenge in organizations today, right? And part of this fragmentation comes the challenge you have with the lack of standardization. And we spoke about this briefly when we were talking about previous topic here, is this data being contextualized differently, being referenced differently, and it leads to the situation of data rot across the organization, right? Thousands of duplicate material records, inconsistent part descriptions, everybody describing the same part their own way. So this leads to a massive context and trust deficit across the organization, right? And slowly you can see, like, an ecosystem like this, an environment like this is pushing you towards, it's not pushing you off a cliff, so it's not going to be a catastrophic failure, but over years this is causing slow motion inefficiency,
Mm.
right? You can see it happen, you know it happens, it's been happening for years, but it continues to happen. That's the problem. So the danger here is that we've started normalizing these things. They manifest as small daily delays, but then they get inherited into the workflow as part of the process, and then it becomes formalized and documented and becomes the way that people do things, and that is the kind of systemic issues that I think cause real problems.
Great. Dr. Syed, I wanted to ask you how prevalent are these kind of data-driven failures in maintenance operations and what causes them? I also wanted to thank Amir for his question, and I'll read it out so you can probably answer it along with my question. Leadership teams often see data cleansing as a sunk cost rather than an investment. This is so true. And beyond just reducing downtime, what are the top 2 or 3 hidden financial metrics we should be tracking to prove that governance asset data is driving the bottom line?
Yeah, I think that's a great question. But let me just say a very bold statement that if any organization is maintaining and managing the duplicate records, be it master data records or be it metadata records within their organization, I personally believe that it is sin, because we are in the AI era and we are unable to identify, eradicate duplicate records. And duplicate records are causes for duplicate spares or duplicate assets. And I don't think that anybody should consider data cleansing or data harmonization as just a sunk cost, because the real benefits are afterwards. Once you establish, before you plant the tree, you cannot say that, okay, how many fruits it's really going to give us back. So you need to plant, you need to invest, and you really, that's a seed. Once you seed that, it will take a little bit of time. But I know of the organizations with whom we are working for a decade or more than a decade, they say that the decisions that we made 10 years ago, 15 years ago is actually where we are standing today. That's the foundation on which we are standing. And very simple thing with regards to also the duplicate spare parts or duplicate models that we have and all of that, the value leak is too big to even assess. I'll just give an example of it. About 2 months ago, we did a project just to identify what is the working capital cost, total working capital. You will not believe, 42% could have been avoided, reduced. And this has been for the past 5 years. And imagine what is 42%. And it was in millions, by the way. It was not in, hundreds of thousands. It was in millions and hundreds of millions. So 42% of hundreds of millions, I cannot name, the scenario or a customer, but absolutely it is a sin that, people are working on the wrong data and maintaining it as if it is their duty. Like what Shreyas was mentioning, that majority of the, admin time is just to maintain that bad data and get it corrected and use it. So I don't think that anybody would have any excuse with the tools and with the AI that is available now. And in fact, we have also a lot of hundreds of AI models that can scale up, that can accelerate the data harmonization, normalization as per the ISO standards. And then you can actually have the right foundation. Once you have the right foundation, like everybody knows, AI would work, as smooth as it can. But if you do not have the right foundation, then that is definitely a challenge.
That's true. No, great insights from both of you. I wanted to just give a shout out to Mohammed Faraz, who's joined us. Thank you so much for your comment. He says this is exactly what many organizations struggle with, and he agrees 100%. Now, for everybody in the audience,
Before you move on, sorry I interrupted you. Can I take a shot at answering the two questions that came in from Amir and Jairam? Both of you,
Yeah.
thank you for your questions. Amir, I think, and this is a very important question, right? So, and I want to be a little careful how I answer this, because you need to, now if you're doing this internally and you're part of the organization, you have to remember that there are performance related aspects here. So we typically don't want to blur those boundaries, because we don't want like our procurement teams to think that, hey, we're looking into how they perform day to day as a procurement team. But there are important metrics that you can still monitor, that will take a look at exactly these kind of productivity issues or challenges with the process per se. And this like this metric which I'm going to talk about, it's called a rate of procurement leakage or procurement leakage, right? It's very underestimated, and usually when you bring in a third party consulting firm to come and take a look at optimization opportunities across the organization, that is when they will recommend something like this to you. So it's only at the absolute end of an initiative like that you get to know that this metric might probably help. But I think it's a good place to start, because it gives you an idea of how big this problem really is. So when we talk about procurement leakage, we're talking about the level of duplicate purchases we are making today, the kind of expedited shipping your procurement teams are doing today, how many incorrect and unavailable parts continue to remain incorrect and unavailable today, right? How many times have they bought components that do not match the requirement that comes from these teams? So it's extremely important to know the size and extent of the problem that you're dealing with before you go ahead and mount an initiative and make this one line item in a long list of line items and everything gets lost. So I think that's extremely important. And a couple of other metrics that usually get overlooked quite often is, at the maintenance or MRO level, we're talking about inventory efficiency, which ties into procurement leakage, in the sense we get to know what kind of duplicate stock we're carrying, how your inventory is aging, why that is happening, why are we stuck with slow moving inventory, right? So starting off with a combination of this is a good first step, because one, it's diagnostic. It gives you a good understanding of your current state, and it also explains why you are in the state you are, even before you start solving the problem.
Yeah. Yeah. I
that's
just want
true.
to show this question here because it is addressed to both of you. So
Mhm.
if you can maybe carry on with that, Shreyas, and then we would like to hear from Shashi.
Sure. Yeah. The next one, I think I was. Let me just see. Yeah, Jairam's question around data discipline. Why do so many large scale MDM initiatives still fail? And I briefly spoke about this, when I was talking about why the governance aspect here is important, is because when you start treating an MDM program as a pure technology program, that's when these challenges come up, because we need to solve both of this in parallel. I said half of the problem is solved by ownership and governance, half of the problem
Mhm.
is solved by a solution. So make sure both of these are being done in tandem. And a lot of organizations just don't, because it takes time, it takes effort, and there is a lot of cultural change required to change the current ways of working. That all goes into the governance aspect. So that's important to address, which most organizations don't, and hence their MDM initiatives fail. And one other issue that comes up, and this ties into the point that Amir was making when he was asking his question, is um, are you focused on the right metrics? Because when
Mm.
you're talking with implementation partners and when you take a technology lens to this, the question just is, hey, how many records are we cleaning? How many records are we standardizing? Right? Uh, the more important question, and this is what moves the needle for the business, is why, right? What outcome are we expecting? Like the number of records cleaned, fantastic metric, but does it move the needle for the organization, right?
Yeah,
That's the important thread that you have to tie to actual business impact. And when you don't tie this back to business impact,
true.
you don't have a strong business case, and you don't have a strong business case on paper, even your MDM initiative will look like it failed.
Yeah, yeah. Just one comment on that, Shreyas, and then we take the other question. Uh, we proved to couple of customers already that MDM initiative is self-funding, because we really felt that you could actually self-fund this. Initially, probably you will have to invest little bit, but after 6 months or so, you would see that that value has realized from the duplicate materials, whatever the cost it is, operational efficiency, procurement excellence of it, and operations and maintenance and that. And in fact, we also are betting, saying that guys, don't pay us for initial work, pay us 2.5% of success fees or 5% of success fees. So don't pay us for that. And initially they were very hesitant, is it really true or not? But when we showcase what is the value that it is generating, they are hesitant to even pay 5% of that return. 5%. So I don't think that it is a question of whether you are going to get return or not. When the customers hesitate to pay 5% of the total value realized, and again we are talking about tangible value realized, that proves that there's definitely value, and that is how you can actually onboard other stakeholders. Okay. I'm just putting down another question here, if you can probably answer that, and then we move on.
Yeah, I mean, I just will give you my observation, and Shreyas is actually an expert here. But most of the time, I think you have to choose an expert in that industry. I think PiLog has been there for about 30 years and has got the industry expertise. So whoever you choose, you have to, especially for asset-heavy industries. And from what I understand, like it could be airlines, railways, airports, manufacturing, and so they are used to seeing the aged infrastructure and what is the fastest route to get to productivity. So I think that's my answer. Smita, over to you, Shreyas.
Yeah, I I completely agree with both of you, but this point that Dr. Imad made about MDM being self-funding, absolutely, you know, like I said, 60 to 70% of the right amount of effort for any digital technology initiative on average is a data effort, which means if you're trying to do anything without putting in that 60 to 70% of effort required in the data realm, You might get benefits, but you will not be able to sustain. And we also have this term that we called, a misplaced focus, because you're focused on just one layer of the tech stack to hopefully solve the problem that happens across layers. So that's the reason why this is not going to be a persistent solution if it is not done the right way. And I completely agree with the fact that initiatives like this, if they are done properly, are self-funding, and a lot of value, sustainable value, comes from doing MDM work. But then let's say you don't do this, which
Mm.
happens very commonly. And to Jairam's point, that's also one of the reasons why MDM initiatives fail, is we don't put aside enough time to do these things when we are doing any transformation project or any digital initiative. But let's say you're successful with that. Now what's going to happen is, you're now going to be dealing with this problem of decay, right? This is going to be an ongoing decay, data degradation that's going to happen, because you did not solve the very basic reason why these problems are occurring. And it's important to have done that, because you didn't do that. You now have to invest, or reinvest in a data cleansing initiative. You have to re-standardize records, and you now have to go back and remove duplicates again. Might
Mm.
happen in 3 years, might happen in 5 years, might happen in 7 years. But you have just ensured that what should have been a one-time proper setup activity has now become a recurring data maintenance activity. Right. So you have now caused yourself more structural issues. Even after spending all of this money doing this project upfront, you now have to deal with the data degradation. And it's important to keep that in mind, because a lot of times this does not show up in conversations. It does not show up as part of the cost that you incur to operate or to continue operating the way you are today, with all of the inefficiencies and the governance issues. And it's important to take a step back, zoom out of the picture, and make sure you're addressing this in some form of fashion. If you're not addressing this with the hopes of solving it, at least address this as a cost line item which is going to recur in a couple of years.
Yeah, before going forward, I think I'm really appreciative of all the people who signed up on LinkedIn Live. You can actually visit PiLog.com or the PiLog's LinkedIn page to watch this recording. I think there is a question here about, is it a standard for handover from project to maintenance? But before you answer the question, I think this is a broader question. As you can see, the data itself took a lot of time. We could actually have a webinar exclusively on that particular topic. But as organizations scale, how do they think about the challenge of having data aligning to functions, right? Maintenance, supply chain, operations. They may be working effectively in their own system, but they're not always working with the underlying definitions or structures. So there are a lot of disconnects. It's not always visible upfront, but it only surfaces when you need to make decisions very quickly. So with that, maybe you can also answer Mohammad Azim's question, and LinkedIn user, thank you so much about your question too. So we'll start with you, Shreyas. Where do these cross-functional disconnects tend to surface first? And what are the moments where things to start breaking down?
Yeah, when data issues span different functions in an organization, we still continue calling them IT problems. But the moment it started to reach or touch other departments, it's no longer an IT problem. You should call it what it is. We call it a coordination tax. Every consultant will refer to it that way, that the organization is paying. Right? Yes, this is a problem in the data layer. This is a data related problem that is spanning different functions, but this is a coordination tax that the entire organization has to pay. And you typically end up paying the most tax at the most critical parts of the enterprise. And some of those are, for example, where the MRO and procurement teams coordinate, which is the most common failure point. Like the maintenance system is basically referring to the same things very, very differently, doesn't speak the same language that the procurement system or the inventory system or the ERP system does. So all of your part requests, they get lost in translation, especially if they happen to be non-expensive parts that you need to carry multiples of. This is where the problem really exacerbates, right? Then the second aspect where there is a disconnect is between planning and execution, because your planning teams, whatever kind of planning they're doing, whatever tool they're using, if they're doing it on spreadsheets or doing it on a whiteboard, it doesn't matter. But planners work with ideal master data. Shop floor doesn't work with ideal master data.
Yep.
So when I talk about ideal, I mean it needs to have some reflection of what the current state of the asset is. Like, has recent maintenance been done? What kind of part replacements have been done? What kind of modifications have been done? Because the kind of manuals and static documents and SOPs or what have you that the planning team works with, they have no idea what's been modified. They have no idea where the alignment is. They have no idea what the ground reality is. So that's where planning is divorced from what's happening at the execution layer. And then what happens, teams will completely abandon this system, and then they'll start relying on tribal knowledge that this is how we deal with it because this is how we've always dealt with it. And then because of issues like this, there and because of the lack of investment, the lack of time and effort, there is no learning loop, there is no feedback loop. Let's say for one part, for one instance, for one site, for one asset, you make this change, right? But have you rolled out a similar fix to every single asset that you're operating currently? Do you have an idea of as installed, the differences between assets as they were installed, as they are maintained, as they are being operated today? All of this data should be available somewhere. It should flow between these teams. But then it comes back to broken, inconsistent hierarchies. Then it comes back to all of the disconnects between these teams. Then it comes back to, hey, I don't really understand because I'm looking at the code, whereas the maintenance folks are looking at the actual physical thing. We're talking about the same thing, but in two
Yeah.
different ways. This continues, the loop of problems. So these gaps, they will cause tremendous friction across the organization. And little by little, when you start stacking them up, you're looking at this new line item that from an efficiency standpoint, our organization is paying this coordination tax. And there seems to be, in most organizations, no plan to address this at all.
Yeah.
True. Thank you, Mandeep, for weighing in. We also have a question from Bashir. How can asset data management improve efficiency in small scale or emerging agricultural projects? As we are running out of time, Dr. Syed, do you want to take a quick shot at that? And also, one of the things that we haven't talked about, and maybe you can touch a little bit on, is why this is so important to invest because of AI. And being one of the things is that by investing in all of the initiatives that you both have talked about, you can actually save money through preventive maintenance. So go ahead, Dr. Syed.
Okay, thank you. For me, whether it is a small scale or a large scale or mid scale, the problems are just also scaling up and down. So whether it is a small scale engineering agriculture project or whether it is a mid scale maybe utilities project, the problems are proportionate irrespective of whatever it is. Yes, if you have only handful of assets, probably in couple of hundreds, maybe you can manage it without a system, without investing into it. But the moment it runs out of thousands, then definitely you need to invest into the foundation of it. And to answer the other question, which is the predictive, prescriptive, very nice words, Shashi, but I say that very, very dangerous words, because I don't think that anybody can claim that we have the predictive maintenance, prescriptive maintenance, unless they have the right foundation, right taxonomy, right artifacts, and right maintenance history of it. You cannot. And because you learn it from the previous patterns, then only you can predict it. You cannot predict it if you do not have the historian data, if you do not have the maintenance history of it. So I personally, try to keep myself away from these terms, because a lot of organizations are still taking baby steps to have their maintenance strategies built. Leave about optimization, enrichment, and I'm also hearing this saying that um, self-serve or autonomous or everything is AI driven. We are too far from that in the reality, because when we go to the ground reality and check it, we are too far from that. We don't know what we are talking about, but those are nice words to have, probably very catchy words to also talk about, but I hesitate to talk about that and promote it. The reason for that is the foundation itself is crumbling. The foundation itself has got a lot of cracks in it, a lot of gaps in it, and you will not realize until you start building something. And I challenge people that build something on it. And I would like to give one example. And one of the large organizations who claim that they are AI driven, data driven, we wanted to just do one use case with them. They could not provide the data out of their various systems that they claim. So we had to build the artifacts, we had to build that and put the foundation, and then we could do it. So it's, leave about then the small or the mid organizations of it. And this is the reality, and nobody would accept it. They would like to challenge it, but once they understand what we are talking about, it's difficult. That's why what Shreyas mentioned is that fit for purpose, because for procurement, fit for purpose is a different data set than for maintenance to the finance to the shop floor to the buyers. It's completely different. It's exactly the same comprehensive data set, but how they see it, how they interpret it, how they transform it, how they articulate is completely different. So that is where I would like to leave. So let's focus on fit to purpose, fit for purpose kind of data sets for each of them. And if we can achieve that, that would be a huge achievement. I personally believe that that would be a huge achievement. If we can bring in context of each and every department into it, that would be great.
Great, Dr. Syed. Why don't you just continue and talk for a minute about PiLog's approach, and then Shreyas can talk about his research too.
Yeah, PiLog's approach is very, very simple. We do not want to see asset as a standalone item or a record. We do not want to. We really would like to see that with its associated objects, such as the moment I'm seeing an asset, I would like to see where it fits in the function location. Then I would like to see what are the sub-assemblies into it. And I would like to see what are the spare parts or the components that is made out of and that are maintainable. Then you have the bombs and all of that. Then I would like to see it, what kind of maintenance strategies are implemented on that. And then I would like to see the data set of the task list for that, and then I would like to see what are the failure code for that. So I would like to see that as a comprehensive consolidated object. That's why I call it as a EAM, enterprise asset management. And we have a beautiful functionality. Whenever we are onboarding an asset, we call it as a multi-object change request, MOCR. And that is that is something that can onboard everything and anything relevant to asset. Once you do that, from our approach perspective, we would like to draw the value out of the data. And that's where this whole asset lifecycle management completes its 360-degree view of it. So be it handover, be it standardization of it, and you can see it on the slide. These are the things that we really would like to do. And we would like to guarantee and assure our customers, when you invest into a specialized MDM initiative or a program, these are the outcomes that you are definitely going to have.
Thank you, Dr. Syed. Shreyas, you do a lot of research, especially in this area. So just talk a little bit about this.
Yeah, absolutely. I'll just quickly talk about what Infotech does as an organization. We are a research and advisory firm, and we work with organizations and technology leaders to help you make more confident decisions with technology, with your technology, data, governance initiatives, right? And we've got practical research that assists with that. We've got advisory services. We've got analysts like myself who are available to support you with that. And what you see before you is an example of the kind of research we've done in this space. There's many, many blueprints that we've published on the topic of data management, data governance, MDM, unified data management, unified namespace for manufacturers. We have coverage of all of these areas. So reach out to us if there's anything we can help you with. I'm happy to have a conversation. And with that, I'll toss it back to Shashi to take us over the finish line. Thank you, Shashi.
Yeah, one of the best things about this particular webinar, workshop, or educational thing was that both of you explained things in such simple way that even every part of the industry can actually understand it instead of using so many acronyms and things like that. So with that, thanks everyone for joining in. You can watch this recording too and reach out to PiLog Group, go to infotech.com, depending on that. So with that, thank you very much, Dr. Syed and Shreyas, for imparting your wisdom. I enjoyed it as much as the audience did. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you very much.
Absolute pleasure. Thank you.